So we are going to start our class. Okay, let everybody join. Okay, I think 30 people are good enough. Okay. Can start with today's class. Any doubts from the previous class? Any doubts? If you have, then ask. You can turn your mic on and you can directly ask. Any doubt from the previous class? Okay, you guys, either you guys are understanding everything or you guys are not reading it at all. Okay, I don't have any problem if you don't bring me any doubts, but try to read at least. Just try to read. Okay, thank you. We'll start the class from now. And today's topic is okay. So we are going to start our next class on transport phenomenon, and the next topic is on thermionic emission. Next topic is on thermionic emission, which means, what does it mean? Does anybody of you know that what? I have to admit somebody else. Yes. From next time, if all the people who has institutional email ID, try to log in through institutional email ID, because it is better. Because I won't have to admit you guys, keep admitting you. Yes. Okay. So today's class is on thermionic emission. Can anybody of you throw some light on thermionic emission? Yes.
Emissions due to heat. Emission of particles due to heat.
Emission of particle due to heat. Have you seen somewhere thermionic emission in your life?
Bulb.
To keep admitting.
Cathode ray tube.
Bulb, yes. Bulb, yes. Cathode ray tube, yes. Cathode ray tube does have, you have the cathode ray oscilloscope in your laboratory. That green light comes up. For it, the electrons are emitted by thermionic emission. In bulb, you have light because you heat up the filament, and that filament behaves as a black body. So you heat up that filament, and that's how you get all the wavelengths, energy distribution in all the wavelengths. So bulb exactly kind of behaves as a black body. You can see as like you can compare it with a black body. You can't measure, generally we don't try to measure electrons from the bulb filament, but in cathode ray oscilloscope we try to measure electrons on the screen. Those green lines on the cathode ray oscilloscope is due to the filament. So I hope everybody of you has once been to the lab and you guys have seen thermionic emission at least once, that electrons green lines. Yes. So what is a thermionic emission? We want to find out using our statistical mechanics and quantum mechanics. So from today's class till today's class, what we used to do is we used to apply the Maxwell-Boltzmann statistics to some systems of electrons or particles, and we used to derive some formulas for different physical quantities, and we used to try to compare those formulas with the actual formulas or formulas derived from quantum mechanical considerations, and then we used to see whether they are matching or not, and how many units they are matching, or how many degrees, till how many degrees they are, to how much accuracy they are matching. But from today, what we are going to do is we are going to use the ideas from quantum mechanics. Till now we were using ideas from classical statistics, that means from Maxwell-Boltzmann distribution. Maxwell-Boltzmann distribution is called classical statistics because all of the particles there are distinguishable. You can distinguish all of the particles, and they can stay, so many particles can stay in one energy level there. So Maxwell-Boltzmann distribution is called classical statistics. From today, what we are going to do is we are going to apply some quantum statistics, that is Fermi-Dirac statistics and Bose-Einstein statistics, to the system, and this is called quantum statistics. So what does statistical mechanics does? What does it do is it bridges classical mechanics to quantum mechanics, or I should say thermodynamics to quantum mechanics. In classical mechanics, what you do is to understand a system of particles, it is called thermodynamics. For the gas in a box or something, that big system with so many particles in it, we use thermodynamics to study those particles. In quantum mechanics, we use quantum mechanics to study these particles, and statistical mechanics provides a kind of bridge between those two systems, from macro state, pressure, volume, temperature, etc. in thermodynamics, to the micro state, that is wave function. Statistical mechanics tries to bridge that gap between thermodynamics and quantum mechanics. So it is nothing but a bridge in thermodynamics and statistical physics. Yes. Okay. So what we want to find out in this lecture is how many electrons can a metal emit according to its temperature. We know that when we heat a filament, when you heat a metal or a filament, what do I mean by filament? Simple wire of metal. When you heat it up, its temperature goes up, the electrons gets emitted from it. And we want to know that how many electrons, or what is the current of that electron that can be emitted from the metal at how much temperature. We want to find out the relation of that current density of electron as a function of time, temperature. At which temperature, how many electrons will be emitted. We want to find out this. Why we want to find this out, we'll discuss this at the end of this lecture, but we want to find this out. Okay, so when you heat a metal, some electrons get emitted from it, and that is called thermionic emission. But now, since this emission, thermionic emission, is not spontaneous. What do I mean by spontaneous? That means that just as you heat this filament up, immediately electron won't come out. It will come out slowly. So this process is not spontaneous. It won't come out immediately. So since this process is not spontaneous, what we can consider is, we can consider that we are talking about metal. Okay. So metal is made up of so many wells like structure like this. You have studied, I think, Bloch's theorem and Cronin-Penny model in your quantum mechanics in this semester only. So I hope you know how I am drawing this well. When we talk about kernel in the metal, we talked about it in the first lecture itself. So these are the kernels in the metal. They are some positively charged collection of particles. So they are kernel in the metal, and if electron comes here, it will find some pull due to the potential of this kernel, and that potential is actually not square well potential, but we approximate that potential by square well potential. We approximate this potential by square well potential, and that's what you studied in your Cronin-Penny model in quantum mechanics. So what I want to know is, there are some electrons which are bound to this kernel. There are so many electrons which are bound to this kernel. That means they are sitting inside this potential well of depth W. If the potential well has depth W, they are sitting inside here, and this point is potential V equal to 0. At this point, potential V equal to minus W. So at this point, potential V is equals to minus W. I should use white color maybe here. So at this point, potential V is equals to minus W, and at this point, potential V is equals to 0. So electrons are bound, trapped inside this well. So if they want to come out, what we need to do is, we need to give them some energy. And since the emission is not spontaneous, what we can assume is electron receives energy in small interval of time, and then eventually it will have enough energy, and then it will come out of this well. So how much energy does electron need to come out of this well is our first question. I hope you understand the structure of well and everything. And electrons are sitting there. We are actually considered not in these free electrons. We are considering that all the electrons are bound. And one of those electrons which is sitting inside this well, because of the attraction from the all positive charged particles, want to come out from this well, and we have to provide it some energy. That energy should be greater than this W. That energy due to how are we providing this electron some energy? We are providing this electron some energy using the temperature. We are going to increase the temperature of the filament. That's how the electron will gain the energy, and it's the energy gained due to this temperature should be greater than this W. That's what our mission is. So how are we studying this? We are not using filament in our discussion. We are going to study it on some metal plate. There is some metal plate. we are going to study some physics right now, that how is the emission going to take place. So in this metal plate, let me define some set of axes. This is x-axis, this is y-axis, and obviously the axis coming out of it is z-axis. Okay, I want to just drift away from the topic for a moment, and I want to ask, what happens if I take the z-axis inside the board or inside your mobile phone screens? What happens? Can I take it or not? Can I take the z-axis inside my? I have taken this 3 axis like this. Can I take those 3 axis like this? That is my question. That x-axis here, y-axis here, and z-axis going inside the board, not coming outside as it is coming outside here in your side. Can we take this as z-axis? That is my question.
I guess
yes.
I guess it એ પછી right handed system નહીં રહે.
Yes. So we have studied this kind of algebra. I cap cross j cap is equal to k cap. This algebra is correct only for right-handed coordinate system. What do I mean by right-handed coordinate system? You can move your right hand's fingers from x to y. You will get your thumb pointing out at z. So if you make this kind of coordinate system, it won't be right-handed coordinate system. It won't be right-handed coordinate system. It will be left-handed coordinate system. So with using left hand, you will move your fingers from x to y and you will find the direction of z. It will be left-handed coordinate system. It will won't be right-handed coordinate system. Okay, so what I am considering is right-handed coordinate system, a very good coordinate system. And now coming back to the topic, what is my purpose is, we want to heat this plate of metal up. We want to heat this plate of metal up by applying it some temperature. And what we are interested in is the electrons coming out from this surface. This is YZ plane. What we are interested in is electrons coming out from this YZ plane. So all the electrons which has some energy in this YZ plane, in Y direction and Z direction, they can have any amount of energy. They will just keep on moving. We don't consider those electrons, but only those electrons who have enough energy in X direction to overcome that potential barrier are the electrons we are interested in. So electrons must have electrons coming out from the YZ plane must have some energy in X direction. In Y and Z direction, they can move with any energy. We are not interested in those energies, because if we want to extract something in this direction, they must have some energy in this direction, and that should be greater than how much? That energy in X direction, that is 1/2 mvx square, should be greater than or equal to W. If they are equal to W, then they will just come out, and if it is greater than W, then they will have some motion in that direction. So energy in X direction, this is kinetic energy in X direction. I know that it is clear from the notation. Should be greater than or equal to W. What is the W? It is the depth of this well that electron is trapped inside. So electron can come out till here, or it can have some more energy. So it can come out and even move. It can even start moving. If it has more energy than W, then it can have some kinetic energy even after coming out. So electrons coming out from the YZ plane must have this much energy, and it is from where this energy is coming from. This energy is coming from the thermal energy, that temperature that we are providing. It is coming from the thermal energy, this EX, and we are giving some temperature to this metal plate, and that's how the electrons are coming out from it. Okay, now it was some physics. Now let's do some statistics for this plate of metal, some statistics. So I want to find out, and I will be needing your help in this, number of states available between momentum P and P plus dP range. So what my concern is I know that electrons must have energy greater than this. So this energy is somehow related to the momentum of the electron in X direction. Energy is equal to P square by 2m. So this energy is related to the momentum of the electron in X direction. So what I'm interested in is how many electrons or how many number of states are available between momentum p and p plus dp. So how many electrons, how many number of states are there? In each state there will be some electrons, or one or two, how many? I will be needing your help in calculating that, but I want to first find out how many number of states are available between this momentum range. By that I am asking is, what I'm asking is, if you draw a phase space diagram, if you draw a phase space diagram, here is a generalized coordinate, here is a generalized momentum, and I want to find out that if you draw a sphere of all the momentum axis, and I want to find out that how many states are available in this range of momentum. If all are momentum, this is px, this is py, and this is pz, for how many number of states are available in this small shell of sphere between the radius p and p plus dp. I want to know that. Can anybody of you tell me? Okay, I want your help in this then. In volume h cube, in volume h cube in phase space, volume in phase space, this is volume in phase space. In volume h cube, how many number of states are there? How many in quantum? We are using now quantum mechanical considerations. So in volume h cube, how many number of states are there? I taught you in this in the first class, very first class. It was a recap class. I taught you guys this. In volume h cube in phase space, how many number of states are available?
Only one.
H raised to 3n.
Yes.
H raised to
It is
3n.
only one. H raised to 3n, there were n states for n particles. For only h raised to 3, there is only one state available. For n particles, the volume was h raised to 3n. So what I want to know is, in just volume h cube, how many number of states are there? So how many particles can live in? It is only one particle. There can't be more particles than this, because yes, I hope you guys are understanding. How many number of states available for this h cube volume? Because neither two electrons, like in a smallest volume possible in phase space is h cube. This smallest volume possible in phase space is nothing but h cube for a single state, because this h cube volume corresponds to the multiplication of dx, dpx, dy, dpy, and dz, dpz. For for two-dimensional phase space, it was only h, but for three-dimensional phase space, the smallest volume available in phase space for single state is h cube. I hope you guys are getting this, because that's why I told you in all these things in recap. Because yes, even if you are not getting it right now, you can ask me questions. I am open for it. Until you are understanding, I am not moving any forward. Okay, I hope there are no doubts. So in volume h cube, I hope you guys are comfortable asking questions, right? Because if you won't be understanding anything, I'll feel really bad. I'll feel really bad if I eventually come to know that you guys are not understanding something. Please ask questions. Every question is wonderful in it. Okay, no questions are silly, no questions are bad. If you don't understand, try to ask questions. You can ask questions in Hindi, English, Gujarati. I can understand all those languages. I can understand Marathi. You can speak. Okay, so you can ask questions in any language you want. I'll be trying to answer it in English. Or if you don't still understand English, I'll be trying to switch in other languages. But please ask questions, please, if you don't understand. So in this small volume h cube in phase space, there is only one state available. So I want to know that in this momentum range, how many number of states are available? In this momentum range, the volume of the phase space is how much? It is d cube q, d cube p. And in this, how many number of states are available? It is, I hope you are getting this too, because this is the smallest volume in phase space in this momentum range. This is the volume of phase space in this momentum range and in this distance range. So number of states available are d cube q, d cube p by h cube. They are number of states available. In this momentum range, p and p plus dp, these are the number of states available. Now I want to find out number of states available for an electron per unit volume. Now I want to find out the number. Till now we have found out the number of states available between this momentum range. Now I want to find out number of states available for a specific particle called electron per unit volume in momentum range p to p plus dp. Now how many number of states are going to be for in a single state? How many electrons can stay, as electron is a fermion, but in a single state there can be two electrons, one with spin up, one with spin down. So in volume h cube there are correspondingly two electrons, and in unit volume, by volume I mean the volume in space dimension, not the volume in momentum dimension. The volume in space dimension, this unit volume is volume in space dimension. So number of states available for an electron are 2 by h cube d cube p. They are the number of states available for an electron per unit volume. From where this 2 is coming? 2 is coming from the spin, because in each state there can be two electrons. One can be spin up, one can be spin down, and we are talking about the unit volume. So this d cube q by dp q, d cube q can be 1. It is a unit volume. D cube p by h cube can be there, and number of states available are there. For electron, it is the double of those states, because in each state there can be two electrons, and that's why we can do some more statistics and say that number of electrons per unit volume, these were the number of states available for an electron, but how many electrons will occupy it? All the electrons will not go and sit in all the states. They will follow some kind of distribution, and since they are fermion, they will be following Fermi-Dirac distribution to fill those states. So number of electrons per unit volume with momentum p and p plus dp, we will call this as n of p dp, and it is nothing but 2 by h cube dpx dpy dpz. This d cube p I have broken down into three parts: dpx, dpy, dpz, and multiplied with the distribution. How there are so many states available, so how will electron distribute themselves in those states? This is governed by this distribution function, Fermi-Dirac distribution function. Okay, I want to stop here for a moment just to know that whether you guys understood it or not. I'll just try to repeat it, and if you have got any questions, I'll just try to, because I'm feeling somewhere in my gut that you guys are somewhere not with me. So I'll just try to repeat it quickly. Volume in h cube volume in phase space, there is only one state available. So in this much volume, how many states are available? These many states are available. So per unit volume, how many states are available? Per unit volume means d cube q has to be 0. Per unit volume, d cube p by h cube space are available, states are available. But for electrons, in each number of states there can be two electrons. So number of states available for electrons are 2 by h cube into d cube p, and electrons will not go and sit in every state. They will try to distribute themselves in those states according to some distribution function, and that distribution function, the number of electrons per unit volume with momentum this much is also governed by this distribution function. That number of states available are given by this number. This number gives the number of states available. And multiplying, we are multiplying that number of states available by the distribution function, which means that how electrons will distribute themselves in those available states. This is what this number means. That's how we are getting number of electrons per unit volume with momentum between p and p plus dp. This is the number. If you have any question, you can ask me right now. Electrons, yes?
D cube q has to be 0. I didn't understand that.
Oh, d cube q has to be 1 because of unit volume. We are talking about unit volume. So d cube q, what does d cube q means? Q means the space variables.
Actually, you said 0, so I was confused then.
Oh, sorry, I said it wrongly then. I'm sorry. It has to be 1 for unit volume. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes. Sorry. Yes. Correct me. Correct. Thank you for correcting me, and correct in your notes if you have written it to be 0. It has to be 1 for unit volume. This has to be 1. Yes. Thank you for correcting me. Yes. So these are the number of states available, and number of electrons per unit volume between these momentums are this much. And now we are going to do some approximations, but before that we are going to find the total energy. Okay, we are going to find that the total number of electrons leaving per unit area per unit time. How many number of total electrons are leaving? Okay, what I want to do is these many number of electrons. What I did is till now is these many number of electrons are available between this range of momentum, and if we heat up the metal, some electrons will leave, and those electrons who are leaving, so I want to count those electrons which are leaving, because eventually they will contribute in the current of the electrons, and I want to find the relation of that current with temperature. So total number of electrons leaving per unit area of the surface of that YZ plane per unit time is equal to N of P dP are the number of electrons available per unit volume in the material. This unit area is of the YZ plane, but these are the number of electrons available in the material, and if we multiply it with the velocity in the x direction, these are the number of electrons that are going to come out per unit time. And if we integrate this number, then we are going to get the total number of electrons leaving per unit area per unit time, because these only np into Vp into Vx, N of P dP into Vx describes the number of electrons leaving the surface per unit area per unit time between momentum P and P plus dP. So all those electrons who has the momentum between P and P plus dP will leave according to this multiplication per unit time per unit area of the surface. But if we want to consider all the values of momentum who are coming out from the surface, we don't know. If you want to consider this, then we are considering the integration over all the momentum, all the energies. We are integrating this number over all the energies, so we can know that how many electrons are going to come out from the surface in total. Okay, so I'm just trying to write this number n as this N of P into dP. I'm taking it from here, so I will number this equation as equation number 1, and I'm taking it. Yes,
Sir, can you please go to the previous slide?
this is the
Sir, why we took NPDP, not NPDQP?
NPDQP. Okay, it is, yes, we can take NPDQP. It is just the same thing. I just try to write it in one dimension. So it is NPD, because we are talking about the values of momentum. That's why I took NPDP. Only we were considered not in the axis, just the value or magnitude of the momentum. That's why we took the number N of P into dP. But if we are considered in the all the dimensional, okay, I should phrase it somewhere somehow else. Okay, तो हमें क्या करना है कि हम जो अभी इसमें इंटरेस्टेड है वो है नंबर ऑफ इलेक्ट्रॉन्स पर यूनिट वॉल्यूम विद दिस मोमेंटम रेंज, और ये है मैग्नीट्यूड ऑफ द मोमेंटम. ओके, ये मैग्नीट्यूड ऑफ द मोमेंटम है. तो इफ यू आर गोइंग टू ड्रॉ अ मोमेंटम एक्सिस, सेट ऑफ मोमेंटम एक्सिस व्हिच वी कॉल मोमेंटम स्पेस, जिसमें तीनों एक्सिस px, py, pz are going to be the axis of momentum. In this range, if you draw a sphere and if you draw other sphere just after that, and between these two spheres, the distances of the dp momentum. We want to find out the number of electrons or states available in this range. So this dp is the radius, some kind of thickness of that spherical shell that we are talking about in momentum space. That's why we took dp here and not d cube p. It is d cube p, but if I draw it, if I want to find out the area of this spherical shell, it is going to be 4 pi p square dp. It is going to be that if the radius of this is p, then the area is the volume, total volume of this spherical shell is going to be 4 pi p square dp. This p is dealing with momentum, magnitude of the momentum, that is the under root of square of each component and then adding them. So this is the magnitude of the momentum. This is not a particular volume element. It is this small thickness in which we are talking about. So that's why we can take d cube p if we are interested in if we are working with number density, then we will take a d cube p. These are the numbers. If this is the correct expression if we are talking about number density. This, okay. And I'll try to rephrase this answer actually tomorrow if you'll give me some time, because yes, I'll try to rephrase this answer tomorrow if in some other words maybe. Yes.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, I'll try to rephrase this answer some other words. Okay, so I'll be giving you that answer tomorrow, and for that n of p dp we are writing 2 by h cube, and the momentum part, that dpx, dpy, dpz, and the distribution function. We all know that the Fermi-Dirac distribution function looks like this: e raised to minus beta into energy. How much is the energy? Px square by 2m plus py square by 2m plus pz square by 2m minus Fermi energy plus 1. This is going to be this, and into Vx, this is going to be our total integration. And in that integration, I just want to break it down into some smaller parts. 2 by h cube we can take it out common. I'm just multiplying with mass the downstairs just to make sure. dpy, dpz and dpx into px divided by e raised to beta. I hope you know what is beta. Beta is 1 by kbt. Okay, does anybody of you know this? This is the Fermi-Dirac distribution function. I hope you have studied in, I know that you have studied in the previous semester statistical mechanics. Yes, this is a Fermi-Dirac distribution function. If you have any difficulty in understanding this, I would recommend a reference called The Modern Physics by Arthur Baser. There is a chapter on statistical mechanics. You can read that chapter. It is written in very simple language. So that is a chapter on statistical mechanics. You can read it from there, very basics of the distribution function, and then you can come and watch this, read this part again from your book of B.B. Loud. So I hope it will be better that way. If you don't understand this, then you have this reference called Arthur Baser. Okay. Beta is 1 by kbt, and I am writing this px square by 2m plus py square by 2m plus pz square by 2m minus Fermi energy plus 1 whole added by 1. Now, why I divided by m? Because there was some velocity in x direction. So I divided by m and multiplied by m, and m into vx, I made it px. That's where I did some modifications. In your book, there are so many typing errors in this section again. So try to follow my derivation. And if you are not following my derivation, try to ask me at any place. But your book has some serious typing errors in this section.
Sir, there is a negative sign. Probably you shouldn't. I mean, you did take that. Just go to the previous slide.
Yes.
There is a minus sign.
Oh, sorry.
before the
Yes,
minus.
this is wrong then. It should not be
Yeah.
minus beta. It should be positive beta. Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay. So this, I hope you are understanding it. And now we are going to take some approximations. But before that, let me ask you, I will be needing your help in understanding what does this integration limit should be. How much should it be? How much should this be? Because there is integration in py dimension and this integration in pz dimension. What are these integration limits are suggesting? They are suggesting that how much this n, what is this n? This n means the number of electrons coming out or leaving the surface per unit area per unit time. So this momentum range should depict somehow that how much should be this momentum range for the electron to come out from that surface. This should be the limits here. That I want to find out the number of electrons leaving the surface. So I want to find out that how much should be its momentum in y direction, how much should be its momentum in z direction, and how much should be its momentum in x direction for the electron to come out. So if we go to our first picture, if electron has any momentum in this y direction, will it matter for it to come out or not? It can have any momentum in this y direction, it can have any momentum, but if we apply good x directional force, it will come out. It can have any momentum in z direction, but if we apply good x directional force, it will come out. Even if it has zero momentum in y direction, it is not moving at all in y direction. What we are interested in is we want to take it out in the x direction. So what matters really is the momentum in x direction, not the momentum in y and z direction. It can have any momentum in y and z direction. Only value of momentum we are interested in is the momentum in x direction, and that momentum should be greater than some value, then only it will come out. So for y directional momentum, it can have any values. For z directional momentum, it can have any values. For x directional momentum, it can come out with maximum momentum possible. It will come out if you give it maximum momentum. If it has this much momentum, it will come out. But what should be the lowest limit on the momentum? How much should be the lowest limit on the momentum? That below, if it has the momentum below this, it won't be able to come out. I'll be needing your help here. Yes? Answer?
Sir, root 2 ME.
Root 2 ME. How much should be the E? Yes, very good answer. How much should be the E?
Kinetic energy.
Kinetic energy. How much should be the minimum kinetic energy for
Potential
electron in
value.
our case?
EF.
Potential value equal to potential value.
Yes, equal to potential energy, which is equal to W. So if electron has some minimum energy of under root 2 MW, then it can come out. This is the minimum energy required for electron to just take out from that surface, but it can have any energy or any momentum above that. Are you guys getting this? You guys answered it, so you guys must be getting this. Okay. So
Sir,
this should, yes.
you spoke about that we are giving energy in x direction, but how we are like supplying directional energy?
Oh, we are supplying energy in all the directions. We are not supplying it
Yes,
in
sir.
particular direction.
But we are just considering in for xy plane.
Yes, we are considering it for YZ plane, that to extract an electron from YZ plane, its x
For
component
YZ
of
plane.
momentum should be greater than this. That is what we are considering. We are supplying it just random energy. Electrons are moving randomly, but only electrons which has the energy in x direction or which has momentum in x direction greater than this will come out.
But
Otherwise, they won't.
would it be like symmetric for all other planes? Because the slab is not a symmetric one.
Yes, so if you want to consider, yes, it will be, in our case, the slab was not symmetric, but this is a small part of the slab I drew to just make you understand it. Even if it is not a slab, it will be symmetric in all other directions. If you are talking about the electrons coming out in other directions as well, it should be symmetric. It is symmetric actually, because you can't have any way to distinguish. If you are talking about statistical mechanics, you can't have any ways to distinguish and prefer this direction over this. You don't have it. But but we are interested in this plane. That's why we are talking about this plane. So all these electrons coming from this plane must have this much energy. All the electrons coming from other planes must have different kind of energies. If they are coming from XY plane, then this value should be this under root 2 MW. If they are coming from XZ plane, then this value should be different, under root 2 MW.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Anybody else has doubt? I heard the sound of raising hand. Anybody else? I hope your doubt is clear. Last who are? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So there's somebody else raised, and I'm not able to see you guys from this screen. So kindly ask questions. Just directly turn on your mic and ask questions if you have any. Don't try to raise hands. It is okay. Okay. So just apart from the question by Michelle, why are we not using DQP here? I hope every questions are answered.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. So what we are going to do is now we are going to take a beautiful approximation. This W is the width or depth of the well the electron is sitting inside. So for hydrogen atom, just let us take the example of hydrogen atom. Hydrogen is not a metal, but we are just going to take its example anyway. For electron to just come out from the ground orbit, how much energy should be supplied to the electron? Hydrogen atom can also be considered as a well. Electron is sitting in the lowest orbit, then it needs to be supplied 13.6 electron volt energy to just make it come out. So W is of the order of 13.6 electron volt for hydrogen atom. Are we all clear on this? Then we are moving ahead and we are going to generalize it and taking some approximations that W is generally for the metal is of the order of 2 to 5 electron volts, since for hydrogen it is for 13.6 electron volt. For metal it is generally of the order of 2 to 5 electron volt, and since W is of the order of 2 to 5 electron volt, this Px, Py and Pz are going to be tremendously large, and since they are going to be large, e raised to something large is even larger, so we can neglect this one, and that's how we are going to neglect. This is approximation one in denominator for easy calculations. Actually what you can do is you can actually calculate this integration using this one, and what you are going to get is the accurate answer, but we are taking this one, we are approximating this one because these are the large numbers. We are approximating this one, we are just ignoring this one because it is an addition with this big exponential. We are just going to ignore this one, neglect this one, and then we can bring this exponential part in the numerator, and this will be minus beta of all these terms into this will be e raised to beta ef, because minus plus. So what we are going to get is numbers are actually 2 by h cube mh cube minus infinity to plus infinity e raised to minus beta py square over 2m dpy. What I did is I just separated all these things, all these 4 parts, and I'll be writing them here with their respective integrals. In your book, this W also sometimes appears like omega. So there are some printing errors, serious printing errors there. So try to follow this derivation. I hope you guys understand this. I am just breaking it down. We have just neglected this one. That's how this part got into numerator with some minus sign. E raised to minus beta py square by 2m, I bought it with this guy. E raised to minus beta pz square by 2m, I bought it with this guy. E raised to, because there is minus and this is also minus, e raised to beta ef, and since Fermi energy of the metal is constant, I have bought it outside of the integral. E raised to beta ef, I bought it outside to the integral, and e raised to minus beta px square by 2m, I bought it with these guys where there is additional px there, and we have got some beautiful set of integrals. I'll be naming these integrals as I1, I2, I3. This integral is I1, this part is I2, this part is I3, and I hope that you guys are able to do these kind of integrals. So solving some integrals, I mean, if you have this kind of integral minus alpha x square dx, how much should this be? Under root pi by alpha. Do you guys know this? Does electronics guys know this? Because mathematics you have studied this under gamma function, but those students who have taken electronics in their respective semesters, do you know this? If you don't know this, we'll talk about this after the class, so stay after this class. This is the standard integral. E raised to minus alpha x square dx is under root pi by alpha. Here this terms beta by 2m can be considered as alpha in this equation. In this integral, beta by 2m can be considered as alpha, and this integral can be solved easily using substitution of this e to the power something as some t, and then you can take derivation of it, and then you can easily solve this integral also by taking e to the whichever power. You can take it as t, and you will have 2px into something equal to into dpx equal to that dt. So you have px dx and relation with the dt, and you will solve this equation very easily. And after solving those equations, I leave it to you guys so to solve these equations, and I leave it to you guys. After solving those equations, what will you get is you will be getting n as 2 e raised to beta ef divided by mh cube. This first integral is pi by alpha, alpha is beta by 2m. Second integral is also pi by alpha, alpha is beta by 2m. And third integral, if you will solve properly using the limits, it will be m by beta e raised to minus beta w. These are going to be all these equations, and if you will solve all these integrals, how is that? I'll be telling you after the class if you want to understand that how this formula comes and how to solve this integral also, but they are really simple. I think you should try, but if you want to understand, just stay after the class. Okay, current density. So this n, I can write this n properly as this beta and beta and beta as beta square in the denominator. So I can write this n as 4 pi m beta square h cube e raised to beta ef minus w. Here I just written this thing after some after cancelling this m with this m, and after this algebra, just simple algebra, simple mathematical algebra, I have written this n. And what does this n denote? The number of electrons coming out from that unit area per unit time from that yz plane, So these are the number of electrons coming out per unit time per unit area. And if we want to find the current density J, then how much number of electrons coming out into the charge of each electrons per unit area per unit time. This is the current density. This is the number coming per unit area. So it is anyways depicting the charge coming per unit area. That's how we have cancelled the area in denominator. So n into e is the charge density, and you can write charge density as 4 pi me upon beta square, and beta I am going to write as k square t square. So 4 pi me k square t square upon h cube e raised to beta ef minus w, and I am going to write this ef minus w as minus phi. So it is minus beta phi. So this is nothing but, J is nothing but some constant A times t square times e raised to minus beta phi, and this constant is nothing but 4 pi me k square by h cube. You can calculate this constant, and this law, this tells me that if we are increasing the temperature, here is also some temperature associated with beta. Here it is proportional directly to the square of the temperature and exponentially decaying temperature, exponentially decaying of inverse of the temperature. So current density is proportional to the temperature like this, and this law is called Richardson-Dustman formula, Richardson-Dustman equation. J is equal to a t square e raised to minus beta phi, and this phi is called the work function. Phi is called the work function. It is nothing but W minus epsilon f. It is nothing but W minus epsilon f. And if I want to write what is the work function properly in words, then W minus epsilon f means the energy required to remove remove an electron from Fermi surface, Fermi energy level. So if we are talking about this well, there are so many electrons sitting there. Total depth of the well is W. There are some electrons sitting at the Fermi energy level. This is Fermi energy level. So this much depth is called the work function phi. W minus epsilon f is called the work function phi. They are energy required to remove an electron from the Fermi energy level, not from the bottom of the well. It is called the energy required to remove those electrons, and there will be some electrons over the Fermi level also. So it is some kind of mean value of energy that is required to remove an electron. It is some kind of mean value of energy. Don't emphasize on the word mean, but yes. And this law is called Richardson-Deshman formula. This A T² is called Richardson-Deshman equation. And the beauty is, if you calculate the same, try to calculate the same equation using proper quantum mechanics. We have used some quantum mechanics. We assumed that the electrons follow the Fermi-Dirac distribution. But if you try to derive this using proper quantum mechanics, and even if when you try to, what we took was, this was some approximation. We neglected this one and then we tried to derive this formula. But even if you do it using proper quantum mechanics, where you don't have to evaluate those kind of integrals probably, but even if you try to derive it using proper quantum mechanics, and I'm sorry to bring it again, which was part of your syllabus in solid state last semester, but if you try to derive this using quantum mechanics properly, I don't know if it was the part of your syllabus or not, but it was in the same chapter which was in your syllabus. So I don't know if it was part of your syllabus or not, but it is really quantum mechanical treatment. So I don't want to get into that right now. But that equation, if you try to derive it using quantum mechanics, you get the exactly same result with exactly same constant, this 4 pi me k² by h cube. And that's what tells us how beautiful statistical mechanics can be. Even after taking approximation, how beautiful the statistical mechanics can be, which leads us to this wonderful equation of Richardson-Deshman equation. And it can tell us how we can change the temperature to increase the current density coming out from the filament. This is the Richardson-Deshman equation. Okay, so this completes the derivation. And now we want to know that why should we learn this part. This is the fun part of 5 to 10 minutes, where we want to know that why should we learn this Richardson-Deshman equation in the first place. Quantum mechanical considerations gives the same result, so it is a win. It is definitely a win. But why should we learn this thermionic emission in the first place, or Richardson-Deshman equation in the first place? So it is first, it is being used in CRO. So whenever you try to increase the brightness of your CRO, cathode ray oscilloscope, the green line appears to be bright or less bright, you are turning that knob. And by turning that knob, what you are doing is you are applying some voltage to that filament. And that voltage in turn increases the temperature of this filament, and that increase in temperature eventually gets out more electrons from it. So you are using it in CRO to increase the brightness of the screen. I'm sure you must have done this, okay, in your laboratory, BSc laboratory or electronics laboratory. Okay, so why should I study it? The first is definitely CRO, but my mission is a little bit bigger. There is an experiment called Frank-Hertz experiment, which revealed to us that energy levels are discrete. You have studied this experiment in your quantum mechanical course. Frank-Hertz experiment revealed us for the first time that the energy levels are discrete. And how do we do this kind of experiment? We take a plate of metal or a filament here, and we try to give it some voltage to the filament. I'm sorry. Yes. Try to give some voltage to the filament. And you try to heat this filament up so that there are some electrons emitted from this filament. Okay. Now I'm going to give you some experimental insights into this problem, and I'm going to relate it with some really interesting research going on right now in IPR Gandhinagar. So if you increase the temperature of this filament, then what happens is there are some electrons emitted from this filament. How much should you increase the temperature to get how many electrons, desired number of electrons, is dictated by the Richardson-Dishman equation. So you decide how much should be the current density according to your will, and according to that current density you change the temperature, or like that you decide how many electrons you want. According to that you change the temperature, and to change that temperature you believe that that temperature is directly proportional to voltage, because 3/2 kBT is equal to the kinetic energy of all the electrons, and that is being given by the voltage. So by increasing the voltage you increase that, you keep in check the temperature, and that temperature eventually gives out the corrected current density that you want actually outside. Now if you just give some temperature, then electrons will come outside, but some electrons which has very small kinetic energy, even after coming out, they will just sit right here. They will just sit right here, and they will create a layer around this filament. This is called a space charge region. This is called a space charge region. Even after this, after you heat this filament, what happens is there is a space charge region of electrons, because all the electrons coming out of this filament does not have very high kinetic energy. They will just go away. Some of them has, many of them has very low kinetic energy, so they will stay here, and they will eventually, what they will do is, if any electron wants to come out from this filament, they will break, they will stop that electron because of their negative, collective negative potential. So this is called space charge region, and because of its collective negative potential, they will try to block other electrons emission. So what you do is you keep a grid here of positive charge. You keep a grid here. This is a grid here of the positive charge. You will do this experiment in your MSc. I am sure that you will do this experiment in your laboratory in your MSc. But you keep a grid here of positive charge so that all the electrons are accelerated towards this grid, and this space charge region is destroyed. And all the electrons, after they get accelerated from this positive charge grid, you accelerate them further here in this region. There is some kind of gas, maybe it is argon gas or helium gas or some kind of gas. The electrons will suffer collisions with this gas, and this is also a positively charged grid. So electrons will keep on accelerating till this another positive charged grid, and then they will come to the anode. This is called cathode, from where the electrons are being emitted, and then they will come to rest at the anode, which is negatively charged. So what you do is you destroy the space charge region by this positively charged grid. Then there is some gas here where the electrons will collide, and electrons will lose some energy. Since electron will lose the energy, they won't be able to come till the anode, and since they can collide and lose some energy, they won't be able to come to the anode. And since they won't be able to come to the anode, they won't be able to contribute in the current meter that we have kept here. So the current will be dropped if they are colliding with these particles. Then we can increase this voltage of this positively charged grid, and then we can see that there is some current again increasing. More number of electrons are coming, then they will collide and do the second stage ionization of these gases, and then there will be again a drop in current. You will do this kind of experiments, but in this Frank-Hertz experiment we came to know that energy levels are discrete, and the same logic, not the last part, but the front part, we are using the same logic in IPR, Institute for Plasma Research. There is a branch of plasma called non-neutral plasma. It is not neutral. It is the plasma which is completely made of electrons. And to make that plasma, you use this kind of filament, and you emit some electrons from it to remove this space charge region. You have some positively charged grid. That is a wonderful machine called SmartX-C, where you can confine plasma for practically 5 to 6 minutes in this toroidal assembly. So it is a very good research field, non-neutral plasma. If you are going someday to IPR, Institute for Plasma Research, try to see this machine and its operation. So it is wonderful game of research where we are using this, actually using the Richardson-Dishman equation to know that how many electrons will be there. And to eliminate this space charge region, we are using something called Child-Langmuir's equation to know that how much potential should be applied on this positively charged grid. So it is another level, but just by understanding the Richardson-Deshman equation, which we can understand by using statistical mechanics, we are able to know that energy levels are discrete by applying it into the experiment, and we are able to confine the non-neutral plasma into the toroidal assembly for about 5 minutes or some longer time maybe. So ideally it can be confined inside that assembly for infinite time. So just by using statistical mechanics, we can do so beautiful research and apply it into the experimental arena. So it is a clear win. And I just want to show you, before we move ahead, I just want to show you some notes of the experiments that I did in my MSc. So this is my report on the experiment. The dips you are seeing here on the CRO, this is the CRO, and this green line is nothing but the electrons emitted from the filament. And in this CRO, this dips you are seeing in the current, this is the current axis, the y-axis, and x-axis is the voltage axis. The dips you are seeing in the current are because of the excitations of the gas inside the tube, and since the dips are not continuous, they are discrete, we can say that energy levels are discrete. This is my own plot. I did the experiment on different levels, so this is my own plot on the experiment. So you can see that energy levels are discrete. This is the overall application of Fermi-Dirac, overall application of Richardson-Deshman equation into the experiments. So I hope you like this lecture. I'm stopping my presentation, and all of you who has doubts can stay. Otherwise, yes, thank you for coming.
Sir, can I take W as approximation between 5 to 10 eV?
Yes.
So what is the logic behind taking approximations? Like we can take any.
So yes, the logic behind taking approximation in this question was to just neglect one. So in experimental needs, when we use this thermionic emission for experimental purposes, generally we use the tungsten filament. And tungsten filament has this range of W in between 2 to 5. So that is the that is how we took this approximation. But reason for taking this approximation is simple. You want to solve that integration, and if we don't take that approximation, this integration will turn out to be really cumbersome. And we will study that in tomorrow's class. So we'll study this in photoelectric effect, where we can't ignore this part, because in photoelectric effect this W is not that big, and in that we will come to know that how difficult it is to solve this integration if we don't take this approximation. So we just wanted to derive some approximated formula and want to know that whether our statistical mechanics could lead us to the same result derived by quantum mechanics, which is more accurate or not. And it was to our joy that we came to the same result even after taking that approximation.
Despite of taking the approximations, can we like measure experimentally W?
I don't know actually.
Because if you can measure, then I think it would be more elaborative.
So I don't know if we can measure W experimentally or not. Maybe yes. You can read about it. I don't know actually. I will also try to read about it, but yes, I don't know. Can we measure W experimentally or not? Because in hydrogen atom or something, this first excited energy is kind of W. Yes. Yes.
If it is a nucleus, then there must be levels, and levels. I think if we talk generally about just an electron, that electron is in some potential band. An electron must be bound to some nucleus or something like that. So based on that, there must be some theory, something like that, which could be like implemented experimentally and could be held.
But the point is that here the well is square well. That was also an approximation. The well is generally Coulombic well, which is going parabolically. So that was also an approximation. That well we are seeing is a square well or rectangular well. It is not actually rectangular well. It is a Coulombic well where at the center the potential is maximum and electrons are sitting inside those wells. So most of the things were approximations, but to our excitement, the result came out to be really true. So yes, there can be some theory which can help us getting the W, but what I what I believe is that even the W is an approximation, so we generally don't waste our time in dealing with how to calculate that W, because that is even an approximation. So yes, so if the more accurate theory is not this, that's what I told. You can read the more accurate theory in the book by S.O. Pillai, the solid state physics. I have the book with me. This is the book of solid state physics. That is there, the more accurate on page number 276 in this edition. Which edition is this? I don't know. Some edition is there. 7th edition is there in my hand. So in this edition, on page number 276, the this derivation is given using the quantum statistics, properly quantum mechanics. So you can read it from there. There they have not taken this assumption of this simple rectangular well. You can read it from there. But it is a very good question. Yes, you should be always curious about how we did it in the first place. I was also trying to figure it out in the morning, that how can we do this part when I was preparing this lecture. But eventually I found out that even W is an approximation, so we can't. I don't know if we can measure it. I couldn't find the answer in the morning. If we can.
Okay, no problem, sir.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any else question?
Yes, sir. I have a question.
Yes.
Sir, can you please go back to the slide where you explained the work function?
Yes, I will go back to the slide. I explained the work function.
Work function phi, and you also drawn a figure.
Yes, this is the. Yes.
Yes. So that means, sir, the electron which are on the Fermi level or above
Yes.
the Fermi layer,
Huh?
Fermi level,
Yes.
they are only going to contribute in thermionic emission.
No, that doesn't mean it. This was some quantity that came up to us during the derivation. So we defined it like this. Okay. This is the quantity which came up to us during the derivation, epsilon f minus w. We assumed that all the electrons till bottom should contribute. All the electrons till bottom should contribute in the thermionic emission. That's how we derived this equation. Till bottom means till W. All the electrons should contribute into the emission. But eventually what we got, it means that what we got is some relation that between this this number of electrons coming out from the shell was not directly proportional to W, the width of the well, but it was directly exponentially proportional to the EF minus W. This subtraction, it was not directly proportional to the W itself. So what we came to know is that there is some role of work function during the thermionic emission, but it does not mean that all the electrons above the Fermi level are going to contribute. It means that
understanding like the electrons are mostly below the Fermi energy level.
Yes, in most cases electrons are below the Fermi energy level, but
so that is why it is like W minus EF.
Yes, W minus EF. So all these electrons,
Actually, it is a bit confusing. Like W minus EF is equal to 5, but is that due to the approximation that most of the electrons are below the Fermi energy level? So if we
we have not taken that kind of approximation during this, but there are electrons which are in valence band also, which is above the Fermi energy level. So in metals, generally the Fermi energy level is at the midpoint between all the electrons. So if you have filled this, if you have a bucket of electrons like this, maybe, so Fermi energy level is somewhere here in metal. So some electrons are above and some electrons are below the Fermi level. In metal, always it is the case. So what we are talking about is, it does not mean that all the electrons above the Fermi level are going to contribute. It means that there came a time when we needed this kind of subtraction, and we defined it as the Fermi level. Just that, and we are we defined it as the work function, and we are going to use this work function in the photoelectric theory, photoelectric derivation. But Yes, it does not mean that all the electrons above this are going to contribute, because in the beginning what we did was, in the beginning of the theory, what we did was that all the electrons from the bottom, from this much minimum kinetic energy to the maximum kinetic energy in x direction, are going to contribute, all the electrons. So it does not mean that only these electrons are going to contribute. It is just this equation which depends somehow on the phi work function, but it does not mean that it only depends on the values above EF. You can actually try and do, what you can actually try and do is, you can plot J as a function of temperature for a specific metal with some specific work function. What you should actually do is to try plot J versus temperature. Beta also contains temperature, so you'll find that after some temperature, you are going to find that the charge distribution is going to increase.
Sir,
Yes.
as you said, the beta is 1 upon kb. So how it is
1 upon
dependent
kb
on-
into T. 1 upon kb into T. I wrote it somewhere. I wrote it somewhere. It is 1 upon kb into T. Yes, here.
Oh, sorry. I didn't take T in Dhyanman IoT.
Yes. Okay. So it is, beta is 1 upon kb into T. I hope you have used this notation somewhere, but if you have not used, we are going to be using it plenty number of times. And this is a standard notation for thermodynamics and statistical mechanics.
I will sure to try plot this graph.
And you can plot it in Excel also. It is very simple plot. So you can take some values of temperature and you can plot it in Excel also. When I didn't use the coding, I used to plot it in Desmos. In your mobile phone, you have Desmos app. Just feed these values in the Desmos. Try to find out this constant, put the constant there, and try to find out at how much temperature this current density actually turns out to be really worthy. For some temperature, it will be really near to zero. After some temperature, this current density will start on increasing. So how much should be the temperature to find a really good current density? And what do you mean by really good current densities? Depending upon your need of experiment. In CRO, you need something. In non-neutral plasma, you need something else. In Frank-Hertz experiment, you will be needing something else. So that is what. Yes.
Okay, sir. And can you please again explain this Frank-Hertz experiment after the point?
In this region.
मतलब જ્યાં તમે કીધું ને કે ઇલેક્ટ્રોન્સ એક્સેલરેટ થઈને જે ફર્સ્ટ ગ્રીડ છે એના પાર આવી જશે, એના પછીનો પાર્ટ એકવાર ફરીથી એક્સપ્લેન કરો પ્લીઝ.
Yes, I should be using whiteboard in that. Yes. तो कोई पण मटेरियल हो, अच्छा कोई भी इन एनी मटेरियल, कोई भी मटेरियल होगा, उसमें क्या होगा, एक न्यूक्लियस होगा, इलेक्ट्रॉन 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 और ऑर्बिट्स. नाउ इफ an electron comes, what we assume in Frank-Hertz experiment is that electron collides with other electron and loses if this other electron is in the inner orbit somewhere here. If electron collides with the electron, if it is in inner orbit, then it will, the other electron, okay, तो ये ऐसा है. Let us suppose some gas helium is there, some gas molecule of helium is there. There are 2 electrons on this shell, and the external electron, which is being accelerated from the filament, comes and hits this electron. Now we assume that this electron is inelastic collision. तो अगर ये इलेक्ट्रॉन के पास इनफ एनर्जी होगा कि ये अंदर वाले हीलियम के इलेक्ट्रॉन को एक्साइट कर पाए, तो ये इलेक्ट्रॉन पूरा एनर्जी इसको दे देगा. अगर इसके पास इतना एनर्जी नहीं होगा कि ये इसको एक्साइट कर पाए, तो ये टकरा के सीधा अपनी खुद की एनर्जी लेकर निकल जाएगा आगे. दिस इज व्हाट वी अज्यूम. ठीक है, थोड़ी एनर्जी लूज करता है जनरली कोलिजन पे, बट अवर पर्पस इज, यहाँ पे ग्रिड है, ग्रिड 1 बोलेंगे इसको, ये ग्रिड 2 है, यहाँ पे इलेक्ट्रॉन एक्सेलरेट होता है और इसके बीच में कहीं गैस भरा हुआ है, हीलियम गैस सपोज. तो ये इलेक्ट्रॉन जो ग्रिड 1 से आया, वो इस इलेक्ट्रॉन के साथ टकराएगा. इस इलेक्ट्रॉन को, अगर इस इलेक्ट्रॉन के पास इनफ एनर्जी है कि ये इस इलेक्ट्रॉन को फर्स्ट एक्साइटेड स्टेट में छोड़ पाए, तो ये इलेक्ट्रॉन अपनी सारी एनर्जी इसको दे देगा और फर्स्ट एक्साइटेड स्टेट में छोड़ देगा, और ये इलेक्ट्रॉन चलना बंद हो जाएगा. तो यहाँ पे जो करंट मिल रहा था ड्यू टू दिस एक्सेलरेटिंग इलेक्ट्रॉन्स वो अचानक से ड्रॉप हो जाएगा। तो करंट पहले धीरे धीरे बढ़ेगा, क्योंकि आप धीरे धीरे ये वोल्टेज बढ़ा रहे हो, तो नंबर ऑफ इलेक्ट्रॉन्स गेटिंग एमिटेड फ्रॉम द ग्रिड आर इंक्रीजिंग, ठीक है, मोर नंबर ऑफ इलेक्ट्रॉन्स आर गेटिंग एमिटेड। ये वोल्टेज बढ़ा रहे हो, या फिर आप यहाँ पे भी ये वोल्टेज बढ़ा सकते हो। पॉजिटिव वोल्टेज अगर बढ़ाओगे तो नंबर ऑफ इलेक्ट्रॉन्स यहाँ पे मत बढ़ाओ, यहाँ पे बढ़ाओ। तो ये पॉजिटिव वोल्टेज बढ़ाओगे तो एक्सेलरेशन ज्यादा इलेक्ट्रॉन का होने लगेगा, ज्यादा इलेक्ट्रॉन का होने लगेगा, और मोर नंबर ऑफ इलेक्ट्रॉन्स विल बी रीचिंग हियर, तो करंट धीरे धीरे बढ़ता रहेगा। बट अब एक पॉइंट पे ये इलेक्ट्रॉन जो आ रहे हैं, आप यहाँ पे पोटेंशियल बढ़ा के उसकी काइनेटिक एनर्जी बढ़ा रहे हो, तो एक पॉइंट पे इलेक्ट्रॉन इसको एक्साइट कर देगा, हीलियम एटम को, और अपनी सारी एनर्जी वहां लूज कर देगा। सो वी आर गोइंग टू सी सडन ड्रॉप इन करंट, बिकॉज सारे इलेक्ट्रॉन करेंगे, एक इलेक्ट्रॉन करेगा तो बाकी सारे इलेक्ट्रॉन ने क्या गुना किया, सब करेंगे, और वी आर गोइंग टू सी सडन ड्रॉप इन द करंट। और अब भी आप पोटेंशियल बढ़ाते जा रहे हो, तो अब वापस क्या होगा कि ये इलेक्ट्रॉन इसको फर्स्ट एक्साइटेड स्टेट में तो पहुंचा पाएगा, बट फर्स्ट एक्साइटेड स्टेट में पहुंच जाए और यहाँ पे ये इलेक्ट्रॉन रुक जाए, उतनी एनर्जी नहीं है इसके पास, उससे थोड़ी ज्यादा एनर्जी है अब जब आपने ये बढ़ाया तो क्या होगा कि ये इलेक्ट्रॉन ये सोचेगा, जो भाग के आ रहा है वो, कि मैं तो करूंगा इनइलास्टिक कोलिजन, तो मैं तो अपनी पूरी एनर्जी इस इलेक्ट्रॉन को देने वाला हूं, अगर ये वहां जाके स्टेबल रहता है तो, ठीक है। पर अब क्या हो रहा है कि अब आप इसके पास ऐसी एनर्जी है कि ये यहाँ तक तो जाएगा, बट यहाँ तक चला जाए ये इलेक्ट्रॉन कहीं बीच में, यहाँ तक चला जाए उतनी एनर्जी है, तो ये पूरी एनर्जी नहीं देगा, वापस करंट धीरे धीरे बढ़ने लगेगा। अब एक पॉइंट आएगा जब इस इलेक्ट्रॉन के पास इनफ एनर्जी होगा, ये पोटेंशियल आप कंटिन्यूअसली बढ़ा रहे हो, तो एक पॉइंट आएगा जब ये इलेक्ट्रॉन डायरेक्टली सेकंड एक्साइटेड स्टेट में जाएगा, और सडनली यू विल सी द ड्रॉप इन द करंट, ठीक है। तो ये होता है जब आप मल्टीपल एक्साइटेशन करते हो, यही ये प्लॉट का पर्पस है। आपने क्या किया है कि जो ये पहला वाला ग्रिड ग्रिड 1, वहां से जो थर्मियोनिक एमिशन से निकल रहा था इलेक्ट्रॉन, उसका अलग अलग वोल्टेज V1, V2, V3 पे ट्राई किया, 3 अलग अलग वोल्टेज पे, तो 3 अलग अलग रीडिंग है, सेट ऑफ रीडिंग्स, 3 अलग अलग वोल्टेज, नंबर ऑफ इलेक्ट्रॉन्स अलग अलग निकल रहे होंगे। ग्रिड 1 पे आया, अब ग्रिड 1 पे आया, यहाँ से यहाँ एक्सेलरेट हुआ। अब ग्रिड 2 का जो पोटेंशियल है, ग्रिड 2 का, दिस इज कॉल्ड VG2K, ग्रिड 2 और कैथोड के बीच का पोटेंशियल, वो आप बढ़ाते जा रहे हो, और सम पॉइंट करंट ड्रॉप हो रहा है, और इन दोनों के बीच का जो डिस्टेंस है, वहां से आप इसकी एक्साइटेशन एनर्जी फाइंड कर सकते हो, दो ड्रॉप के बीच
डिफरेंट स्टेट्स।
yes, for different states. So I have actually found out the excitation energy, order of peak के corresponding मैंने value of V निकाला था, and then I plotted them linearly, और वो linear plot का जो slope है, that gives you something, and that intercept gives you something. So the excitation energy is 12.13, that slope is giving us the excitation value of energy. So here we are assuming that वो excitation value of energy linear है, बट जनरली वो थोड़ी थोड़ी चेंज होती रहती है जैसे एक्साइटेशन होता है, बट हमारे सेट के हिसाब से काफी नजदीक आ जाता है, मतलब रिजल्ट सिंपल एक्सपेरिमेंट से भी। यस, तो दिस इज द फ्रैंकर्ट्स एक्सपेरिमेंट।
थैंक यू सर।
ओके, so I hope nobody has any questions, only 6 people are there. Thank you for attending. और कोई क्वेश्चन है तो आप लोग पूछ सकते हो, और फीडबैक फॉर्म में आज सर्कुलेट कर दूंगा, आज थोड़ा लेट करूंगा, बिटवीन 3 to 4 because I have the next class immediately. So I will send the feedback form between 3 to 4 o'clock.
नहीं साहब, बहुत अच्छा पढ़ाते हो।
हाँ, पर फीडबैक फॉर्म में क्या होगा कि आपको कुछ भी कहना है मुझसे जो आप नहीं कह पा रहे हो, जैसे मुझे पता चला कि मॉर्निंग क्लासेस चाहिए वगैरह, तो आप मुझे कह सकते हो। अगर क्लास में नहीं
का तो सर ये बराबर लग रहा है टाइम, अभी देखते हैं और क्या कौन क्या बोलता है।
ओके, यस, थैंक यू। तो फिर आई विल ट्राई टू सेंड यू फीडबैक फॉर्म वंस अ वीक मे बी, तो अभी कोर्स खत्म होने के बाद ही फीडबैक फॉर्म भेजूंगा। तब तक कोई भी काम हो तो यू कैन कॉन्टेक्ट मी डायरेक्टली, ठीक है। अपने दोस्तों को बता देना, कोई भी प्रॉब्लम लगे, यू कैन कॉन्टेक्ट मी डायरेक्टली। अगर एनोनिमसली कॉन्टेक्ट करना है तो ऐसे ही टेक्स्ट कर देना, मैं देखूंगा कि किसका नंबर है, ठीक है। हाँ,
एक्चुअली आई हैव अ डाउट, not from today's lecture but from the lecture number 4 of this unit, that is viscosity.
Okay, yes.
So actually can I share the screen? Actually it is doubt from that PPT only.
So can I request you that we will be talking about all the 4 lectures and all the doubts in these lectures also on this Sunday. I'm giving you time on this Sunday, so 21st we will be discussing all those things. So yes, sir. Can I request you to hold your doubt till that time?
Sure sir.
Yes, yes. So we will be discussing all this doubts from the previous section, all this doubts from the current section on the Sunday. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for joining, and thank you.
Bye, sir.